Hi, so after the dust has settled a little bit and a couple of days on the school shooting in Florida. And where to start with this one? Obviously, I'm sure there's no end of people from countries outside of the United States that are once again baffled as to why people would not say at this time we need tighter gun control. That's not the angle I'm going to take on this one for a number of reasons. The first of which is, what's the point? This isn't even the worst school shooting there has been in recent times. And it's so common and the same. I could tell you the news on this over the next few days because it's the same cycle every single time. And nothing is ever going to be done. And also, I'm not from the United States. It's none of my business in many ways. I wasn't there. There's no relatives or friends that were there. So I'm just commentating it from my point of view. But there are some things I do want to say on it. The first of which is I kind of would like people who are in America to know this is not normal. This is not normal. In fact, the United States stands alone, is completely unique in the developed world. In the first world, completely unique in this. Not the fact that there are people with mass murderous intent. Not the fact that people want to cause carnage in schools. Those sort of peoples exist everywhere. The sort of issues, whether it be mental health issues or societal issues, that lead to that desire exist in all of the countries, including the United Kingdom, including other European countries, Australia, Japan, everywhere else in the developed world. Those same things apply. Where the United States is completely unique is that when a tragedy like this happens, nothing is done. I remember when I was growing up, there was such a tragedy in the United Kingdom. There was a shooting in Dunblane in Scotland. And it led to immediate action. Immediate. And there has not been one since. Now, you can never completely rule these things out. Ultimately, and these are always the arguments people use for not coming up with the gun control. There's two main arguments that are used. One is that people with these sort of intents will acquire these things anyway. But what I'll say to that is, it's a lot more difficult. The fact that it's a lot more difficult massively reduces the number of incidents that will happen, because this is common. The other thing that is very notable here is it's almost allowed to become normal in the United States because of the words used in the media. There's one word notably absent from the media on this, and that's the word terrorism. This is not being described as a terrorist attack. And the reason it's not being described as a terrorist attack is because if they describe this as a terrorist attack, they have to describe them all as a terrorist attack. They have to describe all mass murders as a terrorist attack. Anyone who kills multiple people indiscriminately for the purposes of making a statement is a terrorist. But if they call them all that, all of a sudden people in the United States will have to wake up to the fact that these things are happening on a regular basis. And when I say a regular basis, I don't mean a few times a year. I mean a few times a week. When you look through the news, it's often, if a person in the UK is murdered, it's in the news. In America, you have to kill lots of people to get yourself in the news because it happens on a daily basis. And it isn't normal. It's not normal. And I don't understand why it is normalized in the United States. But no, it's not like the majority of other developed countries. It's not normal. In no other developed country is this allowed to ever happen again. In no other. And then we come to the other argument, which is, oh, well, it should have been stopped. It was nothing to do with gun control. This person was reported to the FBI and nothing was done. Of course they were. Someone doesn't just turn from a normal, happy member of society to this. Of course there was someone reporting them. When we have terrorist attacks in the UK, the person responsible was known to the authorities. That's always the case. But what did people expect the FBI to do about it? The FBI coming in for criticism over this. All right, I'm not a member of the FBI. I'm not a member of any security force. Maybe there was something that could have been done better But does that mean it could have stopped it? How? What do we expect the FBI to have done about this? What? Had someone, put them under 24-hour surveillance? Can you imagine how many people could be people who could potentially do something like this? They haven't got the resources. I mean, that's what always happens in the UK. The security force in the UK stop a massive number of these effects. And the reason is because it's a little bit easier for security forces in the UK, because most things that you need to be able to carry out an act like this are illegal. You can't have them. So if anyone tips off the security forces that someone is in possession of these things, they get enough evidence, they can get a warrant, search their house. If they find the stuff, that's enough to arrest them with, because they're not allowed to have it. Over in America, what was the FBI going to do? Going to go around and verify they have all these guns? And then what? They owned them legally. What can they do? Nothing. They can talk about, you seem to be posing with these guns and saying, you're fancy on shooting your school up. And they could just say, I'm just having a bit of fun. Maybe they go to court, maybe they're fined with something, but I don't know. Is there a law in the US against that? If there is, maybe they get a bit of a fine. Is this person going to be locked up? Are they going to have their guns taken away from them? No, because they owned them legally. But I'm not going to attack that, because again, there's no point in going down the gun culture road, because as is widely reported, the majority of Americans are in favour of tighter gun control laws. But we all know the politicians don't do what the people who elect them tell them to do. They do what the people who pay them tell them to do. And the NRA, of course, is a very powerful lobby group. Now, let us say, for example, with the Second Amendment, which straight away being called an amendment sort of suggests that, it was changed already, the part of the Constitution. It could be changed again. But let's forget about that. Let's just focus on what it is, the right to bear arms. And let's say you genuinely believe that this is a very important right. Okay, that's fine. What I don't get is, why doesn't that... When this amendment came in, surely what that basically would have meant was a pistol and a sword. Why these days doesn't that just mean that you can have a pistol and a hunting rifle, say? Why do you need the extra stuff? Because you have to understand this. If you are going to have a law that basically allows virtually anyone to purchase a gun, then you understand, you accept even, that people with murderous intent will have access to guns. That's just, you can't have one without the other. You're accepting that. You're saying you're okay with that. Okay. Now, I'm not accusing people who defend gun laws, the current gun laws, as being okay with this. Absolutely not. I am sure that even die-hard gun nuts are appalled at this. Right? There's no issue about a morality. There's not a morality issue here that I'm going to attack. But you do have to accept that if you're going to allow the majority of people to buy these guns, that people with murderous intent are going to get hold of them. And if further you want that majority of people can get automatic weapons, firearms with a high rate of discharge, then you are also accepting that people with mass murderous intent are going to be able to get hold of them. And what is more, that the authorities can do nothing about it because it's legal. It's perfectly legal. You cannot arrest someone for a crime they might commit. You have to actually know they're in the act of planning it or in the act of doing it. You are powerless to do anything before that point. So you are accepting that. What you don't get to do is what I've seen some senators and congressmen who... what gun laws there were, what restrictions there were on acquiring guns were massively watered down as soon as President Trump started his administration. What you don't get to do, if you are one of the representatives, including the president himself, who supported the watering down of those laws, what you don't get to do is to come out on television and say, oh yeah, we should do something about this. This shouldn't have happened. You don't get to say that. What you do get to say is you get to stand up and say, this is terrible. This is absolutely awful. And My heart goes out to the families. But I think it's a price worth paying for the fact that we have this freedom to purchase guns. Because that's what you're thinking, and that's what you should say. And that's what all politicians should say. Because then if the people are not happy with that attitude, then the people should demand that legislators do something about it. Because going out on television and saying, yes, something needs to be done, but now is not the time to discuss it, is horseshit. Because that keeps happening. Because when is the time to discuss it? Oh, when people have forgotten about it next week when something else happens. And then in a few weeks' time, when another such event happens, it'll be the same old cycle. It's a circus. It just happens at the same time. You can actually see someone's put together things where it shows you people responding in exactly the same way every time one of these events happens. It's the same script. It's like, oh, I'll get out my school shooter script. This is what I'm going to say to the media this time. It's the same as last time and the time before and the time before that. But nothing is going to happen. But what I do want people to take away from this, what I want people to understand, is that in every other country outside the United States, their neighbours Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, every European country, every developed Asian country, African country, in any country where the government has control over their country, we're not talking about anarchy states, but actual control, this would never be allowed to happen a second time in the same way. Because every time a tragedy like this happens, people seriously look at it and go, what needs to happen to make sure that this cannot occur again? What could we have put in laws in place? Could we have put in facilities in place to have prevented it? And the answer is always yes. Always yes. It's not normal. It's not normal in any other country than the United States. And I don't understand why people in the United States don't ever say to themselves, why is this normal for us? But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below as usual, please. And thanks very much for listening. And until next time, I'll see you later.